Compared to your first, how successful was the second CD?
Well, compared to my first CD, the second CD was certainly more successful. I think that one of the main reasons for this is that I already had some experience marketing a CD with my first CD, especially online, at websites and those types of things. Also, I think that the second CD, stylistically especially, is a little better than the first. And it certainly departs into an area musically, that it was pretty new at the time. There weren't many people doing loops at the time, and certainly not doing it live and everything improvised, So I think that those kinds of things certainly helped. The other thing is I was starting to get some recognition because of the marketing that I did on the first CD. People were starting to hear it, especially on websites and those kinds of things. And that certainly helped. By the time the second CD came around, some people have heard of me by then. And were looking forward to a second CD. I always do wonder, though, because the styles changed so drastically, from the first CD being a conventional recording to the second CD, which was very much, a new style, really, a new approach to guitar and a new style. What people who had heard the first CD thought of the second one. Also online, there were certain websites that gave reviews, and the reviews were very, very positive for the second CD, especially. In fact, to this day, it's strangely one of my most popular CDs. And I think part of that is very much that it was the new looping style and the beginnings of that. But also, at the time, I was very much in an introspective mood, musically. And I think that shows in the music, in every track, in fact.
How did you go about selling your CD?
And as far as going about selling my CD, I discovered very quickly that, as opposed to a major label that perhaps has the funding, to put out millions of albums and have them, sit in stores and that kind of thing, I very much only had a few CDs to work with and was doing it all myself. And I discovered that I really couldn't compete, in standard music stores, even locally. It was very, very discouraging. I remember I was all excited, to drop off CDs and hope that they would sell. And I'd sell maybe one or two. But for the most part, they sat on the rack. No one had heard of me. I had a little better luck online. I even remember going to a local music store looking for my CDs because I had dropped them off, several months before. And, I found my CDs, but they were really underneath some plush animals, way, way, way in the back corner. Certainly it would be very hard for anyone to find them. Luckily, though, I had a lot of opportunity online, via the internet. There, I was really could compete with people on labels, even though I didn't really have a label. I think it was around that time that I created, the Alien Guitar record label, which was really just a label that I created to sell my CDs. And it's still called Alien Guitar to this day, several albums later. Also, I found that people were willing to review the CDs, But also online, there isn't all that much that a very popular artist with a lot of finances and so on can do to compete with an independent artist. Really, that we have a website. You can download samples. You can purchase the music and the CDs and so on. There were also websites set up to basically sell my CDs for me, and that was very helpful as well, and certainly got my name out in that respect. So that's pretty much what I discovered, is that really online was certainly the way to go. I'm very thankful for it, because had it not been for the internet, I certainly would be less known and would have sold a lot less CDs as well.
Overall, how do you feel about this CD?
Well, overall, how I feel about the second CD is a very good question, because I think back now, I recorded that in 2000, 2001, and it was really the beginning of a style that's, I've been using for over 10 years now, and it's certainly, I didn't realize what it was at the time, I don't think. I knew it was something different, but perhaps not what it evolved into at the time. And like I said, it was very much in an introspective mood, if you like, musically. And as a result, I think that each track really produces emotions, in the listener. And I think that may have something to do with the popularity of the CD today. I'm trying to remember, what it was like recording the second CD. And what I do remember is that I didn't consciously say, okay, I'm going to record the second CD now. It wasn't that way at all. In fact, it was really my discovery of using guitar loops done on the fly that I would just record and record and record and see what the possibilities were. And when it came time to do my second CD, I basically went back and listened to all of those recordings, the ones that I really liked. And that certainly made for a good recording, because I had a lot of recordings. I think I probably had maybe 10 albums worth of material at the time, and then narrowed it down to one. When I listen to the CD now, though, I have to say that one thing that I vowed to work on for the next CD were the drums. The drum programs, the drum machines. It just didn't quite sound realistic, and I think I've done that very well on later albums, make a more realistic drum sound. But certainly at the time, it's the best that I could do, I guess. I guess that's the only weakness that I hear in the CD. The other thing, I guess, some of the loops and things are a little muffled, I guess, not quite as clear as the later albums. On the other hand, there are some real magical moments on that CD. One certainly is a song called Courage, which was a real step forward for me musically, in the sense that it was very long. First of all, it was about 11 minutes. I had never done a track quite that long before, and in fact, it was really, in a way, almost forbidden. It just wasn't done. everybody expected the 3 to 5 minute pop ditty, radio ready song. And I discovered with looping that that's not the case at all. That actually, long songs, especially instrumentals, are fantastic. They really take you somewhere. Almost take you on a voyage. Very much like watching a film. You get swept away. Very much. And that's certainly something that I was very pleased with. I also, at that moment, I think, in doing the second CD, I really became a believer in, this musical style that I was working on, which is basically the guitar and guitar loops done on the fly, and improvising, not only within a song, but the song itself. And I do that to this day, and not one moment do I regret of it. In fact, I have to say that even on my second album, I almost forgot that the material was improvised on the spot, which I think is quite amusing. It just it was a given by that time. It was something that I did, on a regular basis with every track. As a result, it may put me at a disadvantage compared to other musicians in some ways, who have time to work the material out and practice it, a million times and get it perfect, whereas I've got one shot at it, and that's about it. However, I think that at the same time, I really pushed the instrument further and push my musical style further than I would have doing it in the conventional manner, And certainly I captured, I think, some magical musical moments that I just would have never even considered, doing a conventional recording. Another thing is, I think with this second CD compared to the first, is that financially, that started being a concern, the finances. That basically it was expensive, to put out a CD, certainly.